Alright, today's lesson's on rotation on the coordinate plane. So, let's first start off with our definition of rotation. It's a transformation performed by spinning the figure around a fixed point, known as the center of rotation. And our fixed point in these cases is going to be our origin, our 0, 0. Since the new image and the original image are congruent, it is considered a rigid transformation. So our shape is not going to change when we do these. Okay? Now we can rotate two different ways. The first way we can rotate is clockwise. Okay, we're going to make that equal to CW, clockwise. And that is the direction that a clock goes. So that is this way. Another way we can go ahead and rotate is counterclockwise. We're going to make that CCW. And that is the opposite way that a clock goes. And in these examples, we're all going to go ahead and rotate either 90 degrees or 180 degrees. Now when we rotate 90 degrees or 180 degrees, if we look at our graph here, that means if we look at our graph, we have 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever you rotate 90 degrees, you rotate over one quadrant. Whenever you rotate 180 degrees, you rotate over 2 quadrants. Okay? So we're going to use those to figure these out. So our first example here, number 1, we have how has the object been rotated around the origin. So we have our 0, 0 point is our origin here. Okay. So if we think about our B here, actually let's start with A. We go from A to A prime here. Okay. So I go over twice, 1, 2, and then I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Because I'm going in this case counterclockwise, okay, this arm is going to kind of swing down here, and it's going to create a 90-degree angle. And because I came down 6, I'm going to go over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go, because I came over 2, I'm going to go up 2. So you can kind of see how this bar just kind of swung right down, and our A goes to our A prime over here. And so our A prime, okay, turns out to be a -6, 2. Alright, let's go ahead and see what happens with B. Okay. So B goes over 2, down 2, so which means we're going to go over 2 and then up 2. Okay. That bar is going to kind of swing down. And our B prime turns out to be a -2, 2. And then if we look at our C prime, our coordinate, we have a -2 and a 5. So now let's go ahead and compare our x and our y. All right. Our original x and our y we can go ahead and write here. That's our original. And now if we look at what happens to it, notice how every single time our y turns into our x, and it actually becomes negative. And then each time our x just turns into our y. So 2 becomes 2, 2 to 2, 5, 5. Now look at our y. It's going to turn to our x, but it's going to be negative. 6 goes to -6. 2 goes to -2. 2 goes to -2. So our new ordered pair, our y is coming over here, and then our x is, and then it's turning negative, and then our x is staying the same. So our new ordered pair is -yx for an object that has a, we could say, 90-degree counterclockwise. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. How has the object been rotated around the origin? So the first thing we want to go ahead and look at is we're going from our letters to our prime letters. So here's our rotation direction. So in this case, again, we are going clockwise. And our clockwise rotation is actually 90 degrees because we went over one quadrant. Now let's go ahead and write our new ordered pairs. Our A prime is 6, -2. Our B prime is 2, -2. And our C prime is our 2, negative 5. So if we talk about our original xy, now we're going to go ahead and take a look what happens to x. X over here at our 2, 6, 2 goes over to our y spot and it turns negative. Let's check and see if it's the same way. 2 goes over to y and turns negative. 5 goes over to y and turns negative. So our new order pair is going to have it be a negative x over here. And now let's go ahead and look at what happens to our y. Our y just goes over to x, doesn't change. Y goes over to x, doesn't change. And our y goes over to x, doesn't change. So our new order pair is y, negative x. And again, it is a 90-degree clockwise. Let's look at number 3. We have how has the object been rotated around the origin? Okay, and notice how it's moved 2 quadrants. So we know that there has been a 180 degrees. Okay, now if we want to go this way, we can, or we can go this way. It doesn't matter which way we go. So it is either a clockwise or counterclockwise. Either one we want is fine. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at our new coordinates here. We have our b, let's start with a actually. Our a new coordinate is a negative 2. So a prime is negative 2, negative 6. Our b prime turns out to be a negative 2, negative 2. And our c prime turns out to be negative 5, negative 2. So now if I want to go ahead and compare what happens to each of them, alright, I notice that let's start with an xy. Start with my x stays the same but turns negative up here. My x stays the same but turns negative right there. And then my x stays the same but turns negative right there. So x just turns into a negative x with that rotation. My y stays in the same spot, it turns negative. 2 turns to negative 2, and then 2 turns to negative 2. So y again stays in the same spot, but turns negative. So my new order pair relates is negative x and negative y. That's how it relates to my original. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 4 now. Number 4, we've got a rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. So what is our new coordinate? So this time we're actually looking at what the new coordinates are. So again, it's around the origin, and I know that it's counterclockwise, so it's going to be going this way. So the first, and it actually goes 90 degrees as well. So the first thing I want to do is take my a here, and notice how it goes. Well, it looks like it's at about 3.5 too. So we're going to go, let's start, we go over 3.5 and then down 6. So let's draw this line here. And then we want it to create a 90 degree. So this bar is kind of just dropping down. So we're going to be going over 6, and then we're going to be going over 3.5. And right there between that negative 3 and negative 4. That is my a prime. Okay. If I look at my b, looks like I come over 1 and then down 3. So again, it is that bar that's just dropping down. It's rotating this way. So I go over 3 and down 1. There's my b prime. Go ahead and connect those two. All right, and then c, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Comes over 6, down 3, which means I'm going to go down 3, over 6, and I get my c prime. Go ahead and connect those two. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and write my new coordinates. My a prime is over negative 6. And then negative 3.5. My b prime is over negative 3, down negative 1. And my c prime is over negative 3 and down negative 6. There's my new coordinates now. Now let's go ahead and check to see what happens. Okay. If I have a xy, I notice that my x moves over to my y up here. X moves over to my y, x moves over to my y. So my new coordinate is just going to move my x over there. Now my y moves over to my x spot but turns negative, moves over to my x, turns negative, moves over to x, turns negative, so I'm going to do a negative y there. So those are our 4 examples for rotating. What I'd like to go ahead and do now is pause your video. Go ahead and try the 4 examples. Let's take a look at how we did here. Our first one, we have, how has the object been rotated around the origin? We should have said a 90 degrees, and you should have had a x turns to negative x in the y spot, and my y slides over to my x. So you should have gotten a new ordered pair of y, negative x. Number 2, you have to rotate the object 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. What are the new coordinates? Okay, so notice how I bring it counterclockwise right here. Make sure you write all of your prime origins here, and you should have figured out that, all your prime coordinates, and then you should have figured out that your new ordered pair instead of xy should be negative y, x. Number 3. Rotate the object 180 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. What are the new coordinates? So again, when you go 180 degrees, you're moving 2 quadrants. You can go counterclockwise or clockwise. This one says counterclockwise, so we want to make sure we follow that. And you should get an answer of xy turns into a negative x, negative y. And there's your coordinates if you didn't get the right answer to compare them. And number 4, we have rotate the object 90 degrees clockwise. Should have gotten an answer of xy turns into y, negative x. And again, there are your prime coordinates so that you can compare to make sure